short mark of this recording, but I'm sure it'll be back for future episodes and back to even chime in on our topic today. Eddie Murphy's Coming to America, both of them, the latest one that just came out, and of course the '88 version um, that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. But I guess we can start. Let's start chronologically, or probably with the better version. I think most of our books, the Coming to America '88 version. So maybe just initial thoughts or how we all came to the movie to begin with, whether that was in its initial run or subsequent home viewings.
Now, what I could say is this: I saw Coming to America in the movie theaters in '88, and I enjoyed it. Eddie Murphy was hot back then, and I can't remember what came out first, Beverly Hills Cop or this one. Can somebody remind me?
I want to say Beverly Hills Cop came out first. I could be
I,
completely wrong though. I just feel like it came out first.
okay, I believe it. The reason why I bring that up because Beverly Hills Cop was my ultimate favorite movie at that time, and Do the Right Thing came out soon afterwards, and that took over that spot. But anything that came out Eddie Murphy, um, I was in, I was all in all for it. But I saw it like Coming to America, saw that movie theaters, but I didn't see Golden Child in the movie theaters. But I tried like 40 hours, not that as well. But I saw it 48 hours 1,000 times, and which is surprising. Like I seen it in the movie theaters, like saw it probably on VHS. I can't remember if I rented it or I never, because back in the day you had your two VCRs and you'll rent it and you'll dub it, whatever. I don't remember doing this for Coming to America. I don't remember renting it, but I did see it on VHS. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was on TV. I think somebody had a copy and they watched it with my girlfriend at the time. And I think I only seen it at least twice, no more than twice. I don't think so. That goes to show you how much I wasn't the biggest fan with the first one as many people were, but like I said, I did. There's some things you go see once and like it, but you know that doesn't mean you're gonna like as much the second, third, fourth viewing if you get a chance to have that many viewings of that one movie. But I did have a good time the first one. I saw it, but I recently so actually checked it out again yesterday. And to me, I think I've noticed about Eddie Murphy movies for me, it did not hold up as well over the years because I even tried to watch 40 Hours again. I mean, it was okay. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did back then. Coming to America is the same thing. Um, and like Harlem Nights, it's like I don't know. To me, like there are some movies, no matter how old they get, it just never. It's kind of like it's a classic in terms of it. It's just as good now as it was back then, and it just wasn't there for me. And like I said, I think even though I enjoyed it in theaters when I first saw it in theaters, I wasn't as enamored with it as everybody else was. Even though Eddie Murphy was the hot commodity back then, they always have kind of like that comedian who breaks. Right now, it's Kevin Hart. So Kevin Hart is the Eddie Murphy of today. But um, like I said, so that's it was original. Um, and when I noticed, the Zamunda, it kind of reminds me of when Black Panther came out. You have this kind of like fictionalized version of Africa. Everything's nice and glamorous and everything like that. And that's pretty much what probably the sentiment that people had back in '88, as they did with this Black Panther film, the Marvel Black Panther film. So yeah, I mean, I went on a date, took a date to see Coming to America, and we had a good time. So um, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it. This is sort of the original Black Panther in terms of taking a fictionalized African nation, portraying the royal family and majority black cast. And uh, back in the late '80s, that just wasn't happening in terms of mainstream comedies, definitely. But yeah, this is sort of Beverly Hills Cop is sort of the main role that probably most people think of when Eddie Murphy in movies, but uh, probably also, but this is up there. Coming to America is also probably up there. Yeah, I agree with you that, um, and this is fortunately the case with a lot of '80s comedies. They don't hold up as well as you might have first seen them, like on its initial run, or even when back when you were a kid. Because they're mostly just there for sketches, especially if you had a comedian like Eddie Murphy or Dan Aykroyd or other SNL alum. They were there just to they were there mostly as an excuse just to do sketches. And you see that definitely with Coming to America, with the barbershop stuff, the Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall in old man makeup, and them trading barbs against one another. The Reverend Brown sequence, which is probably the best, the funniest sequence in the original. Um, but yeah, I think you have to give a little bit of leeway to the to especially comedy, because as I'm sure we'll point out, but comedy ages the least well out of all the genres. Even given year to year, and especially given now almost 30 years now between the original release and now. But I did. I hold it in the. I do think there's a charm to this one that is really appealing, at least with Eddie Murphy almost doing a sort of almost putting a sort of sketch comedy show around a romantic comedy. And this is one of the more charming roles that he has. He's sort of wisecracking and very witty in the other roles that he had, especially at the height in the '80s. But here he's very charming. He's very ironically enough, down to earth, even though he's the prince of a well-to-do African nation. But it's yeah, I think we'll get into it with the recent follow-up. But yeah, it's very hard to recapture the magic, I think, and um, especially with this one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I feel like the second one did have a hard time recapturing the magic just because this was something that was made 30 years ago. I mean, but yeah, as far as the 1988 version goes, I still enjoyed it very much. It's had like a very nostalgic feel to it. Still just because it's something I've seen as a child. Like I remember how I came about it, and I thought that was funny too, because I remember my parents actually used to take us to see R-rated movies, but we didn't see this one in theater. No, I remember my parents. I think no, yeah, I remember now. Yeah, okay, yeah, my parents were at a party with other people's parents, and somebody, I guess, the kids who lived there, brought Coming to America into the back room, into where all the kids were hanging out, and we decided to watch that, and like we just died of laughter like the whole entire night. And it's got to a point as we were able to like make a copy of it, bring it home, watch it over and over and over again. And it's just got to a point to where me and my brother was like just able to recite the whole entire movie word for word just because we've seen it so many times. Um, but yeah, like I said, it had that just nostalgic feel to it, just because it's something that was a huge part of my childhood. I do remember Beverly Hills Cop. Unfortunately, I came across Trading Places and another 48 hours before I came across Coming to America, because I do remember those two movies first versus Beverly Hills Cop. I think I got into Beverly Hills Cop like right around the '90s, I believe. because like I think the first one I seen was Beverly Hills Cop 2, and then I went back and watched one. And I think in '93, Beverly Hills Cop 3 came out, which is also a pretty good one. I felt like that one was a little more toned down compared to the first two. But we're not here to talk about that. But yeah. The way I felt about Coming to America, yeah, I still think it still holds up today. I still think it has its funniness. Me and my wife were discussing the whether or not if it created like stereotypes for how Africans act, and I said I don't know. I don't think it does. But at the same time, I feel like it also just creates its own, just because I don't think we believed or we knew exactly how Africans behave themselves when coming to America. So I feel like that question is still up for debate. But yeah, like I enjoyed the movie very much. Watching it again this morning, laughed every single time. I thought what was funny about it was my son, who's 18, 19 months, was in the room with me, and he was sitting there watching. This is like the first time I ever actually seen him sit down and actually watch a movie. And then when like they're at the party, at the engagement party, and you have like the three you have Daryl and his family, or Daryl's family, sitting on the couch with their Jerry curls on. And as soon as that got up to go basically stand over Mr. McDowell, you saw like the imprints of the Jerry curls all over the couch. And like my son just fell out and laughed. And I'm like, this kid's only 19 months. Like, how is he understanding that this is funny? But hopefully when he's older, that memory sticks to his head. We'll see what happens. But I still feel like it still holds up today.
Yeah, and another movie that I saw around Christmas time was Trading Places, and both Coming to America and the sequel, they kind of put Mortimer and I forget the guy's name in there. They slipped them in there. And I'm telling you right now, I used to love Trading Places, and I know I didn't, even though I didn't see that I can't remember if I saw it in the movie theater or not, but let me tell you something. I did see it on VHS. I saw it 1,000 times. But when I saw it past Christmas, it did not age well to me. But yeah, like you were saying, Eddie Murphy, his Beverly Hills Cop came out in 1984. Loved the film. And I did not see the sequels. I didn't even see the sequels to 48 Hours. I probably, seen parts of it, but I was not interested. Maybe I will try to go back and check them out just out of curiosity to see what I would think of them. But yeah, and I did see Beverly Hills Cop probably a couple of years ago, and that was one of his films that kind of stood the test of time for me. I'm gonna try to see it again because it's on 4K, so I want to see if it still has that staying power, compared to his other films. When did you first see it, Jeff? The first one?
Oh, I must have seen this like I don't even know, somewhere within the last 10 years, like, and when it came on, one of the networks, whether that was like Comedy Central or one of the ones that play comedies in the afternoon. So I probably saw like an edited down version of it, and yeah, I didn't quite like it as much, but yesterday I saw um, I streamed it and I thought yeah, for whatever reason it improved on this viewing, whether that's because it's the theatrical version and not TV down, but um,
Yeah, it's interesting how you say that. It'll be interesting to see, because I saw it in '88. So this is the style back then. Like when Coming to America first came out, like all the scenes, in the palace and everything, um, the wardrobe and the production design, all this was top notch back then. So now it's like, because back then we had VCR. We didn't even have DVD yet. So DVD is supposed to be better quality. Now we have 4K. So imagine uh, in all, production design and special effects have gotten so much better. Imagine seeing something that was the best of its time and seeing it 20 years later. I think though that's probably interesting in terms of comparative to seeing it at its time. You know what I mean? So it's singing, and plus you saw it on television. That's the edited version, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about. I think one of the things, the special things about Eddie Murphy was his edginess. Now, um, of course, automatically when you get to regular television, the television they have to edit it in such a way, like um, if you notice when you see a movie with a lot of cursing in it, by the time it gets to television, they replace like motherfucker, excuse me, my language, but like I forgot what movie it was. Instead of saying motherfucker, he says motherfinky or some kind of weird, instead of just like I to me, I think it probably better off just bleeping it out or cutting out the word completely than to just make up this little funny words here and there. I think it makes it worse. So 88 in the theater, uh, there's a lot of edginess to the first film, and and then that's what makes it funny, man. Like the barbershop scenes, kind of like how you were saying about the sketches. Like, okay, you have Silent Live, you know, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood and Gumby and what you call it, the guy from Little Rascals, let's say Buckwheat and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's funny because even though for television, but it was written for television, so they did not intend for it to be, but no swears, no stuff like that. But when it gets to movie theaters, you could kind of let your head down and just be free and be as edgy as you want to be. So that's when Eddie Murphy's at his best. Um, with the barbershop scenes, the Reverend, the sweet what they call it, sexy chocolate, that whole band and everything like that. Um, so it's kind of interesting to see, not to see it for what it's meant to be seen as, for its edginess, and then you're seeing it for the first time on television.
Yeah, and out of all the Eddie Murphy roles, as I was saying, this is probably the most like charming that he is. He's not real. I wouldn't say edginess with Coming to America, at least. There's a real, pretty much like charm and sweetness to Akeem that is and Eddie Murphy is good in like the Beverly Hills. We mentioned Beverly Hills Cop, 48 Hours, but here he's like almost a romantic comedy lead. He's like uh, he's very he's being very charming. He's being he's trying to just trying to fit in this in Queens, and but it's a simple fish out of water story that is like sort of padded out a little bit with the sketches and a few detours, a few side characters here and there. So yeah, I mean, it's not really you don't really come in for the plots or the story so much as you do like the moments that whether that's the barbershop scenes again, or the Reverend Brown, Randy Watson in the sexual chocolate. Yeah, all those are good, and there's just a little bit of story just to like string those all together. Um, and that was sort of the way you made these type of comedies back in the day. 30 years ago, R-rated comedies just have a very simple story, but have a few sketches here and there in order to like show off the talent of your lead.
Well, that's a nice juxtaposition between, like, and I agree that Akeem, he's very moral, is a very upstanding moral person, kind of like a storybook prince, charming, like you said, and like you said, the fish out of water. Um, and yet kind of juxtaposing his personality and the energy that he brought with everything that's surrounding him, which is probably the comic relief, so to speak. And that's what he was known for, you know, uh, since Delirious. You know what I mean? And just coming into the sequel, well, sequel is PG-13. Coming to America is rated R. You know what I mean? So I don't know how many people seen Eddie Murphy Delirious. That's his very first stand-up comedy special, and I think it came on HBO. But this was 1980, man. 1980 and 1981. I mean, I was in middle school, so, and when it came out, and when we all saw it, came back to school. I mean, this thing was on fire, man. Uh, you want to talk about edgy? I mean, geez. I mean, this is uh this is edginess on steroids. you know, it was edgy back then. So nowadays, I mean, you, I went back to watch Delirious because kind of like for nostalgic purposes, but it's completely different. I think Eddie Murphy was only 21 back then, and so a lot of comedy, like people, you can't, you there's no way you could do that today. There's no way. A lot of offensive, he will be canceled, so on and so forth. But a lot, like I said, it's outdated. Even though I saw it 1,000 times back then, right? You see it differently now. It's outdated. But there's one thing that's timeless in that stand-up special was the father when he got fed up during the cookout. That is still funny today. That part is definitely. I don't think that's ever going to. I think that's going to stay. That's going to have staying power. That section right there of that special. But then after a while, he started doing movies like Nutty Professor and Imagine That and Daddy Day Camp, Daddy, whatever the hell it's called. A bunch of other 1,000 words. I can't even keep up all the films he was making. He was saying he was making them for his something his children could see. But I'm like, damn, don't neglect your adult crowd as well. You know what I mean? You could pepper that in some, um, but it almost felt like he was distancing himself from that delirious days because what he was going through back then, that time period is kind of dangerous for him now because we live in an era of cancel culture and stuff like that. I mean, come on, the sequel to Coming to America is PG-13, and this is edgy's. And the funny thing, the crazy part about it is, Eddie Murphy, he's avoided being, he's only gonna go but so far, but other people could be edgy, much edgier than him. Like the Leslie Jones character, she's still allowed to that leeway, so to speak. You know what I mean? I tell people, I don't know if you want to talk about the sequel. I'll stop right now and kind of like see what other people guys say, what I comment what I said, or want to say something else.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to the sequel, the follow-up, Coming to America, with where we follow up with Akeem and the royal family, Zamunda, and yeah, we kind of talked about this before recording, but I saw these. I didn't see this quite back to back, but in a short time span, I saw both. I saw both in a short time span together, and it does not do the most recent follow-up any good. Seeing just those two juxtaposed between each other, because yeah, it's PG-13. It's toned down from, of course, from the first one, but and it's flat. That's basically my takeaway, is that there's just it's not even just it's not really just in the level of edginess or a level of taking chances, but there's just no uh, there's no real there's no real spark anymore between the cast. And you get back Murphy and Arsenio Hall, John Amos, James Earl Jones for a little bit, but there's not the spark that that kind of drove the first one. It just sort of stays on the same level the entire time. And yeah, is there a joke or two that works? Yes, but overall um, overall, there's just not as many laughs not even close to as many laughs as the first one. It just doesn't sustain its runtime. Um, and it's sort of just a almost the TV edit that I saw of Coming to America. It's very just it's toned down. There just isn't that spark there from the original from 30 years ago.
I could tell you what I liked about it. Overall, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, I saw it twice actually, because uh, my cousin came over and she was like, "Nah, you're playing it," because I was like, I saw it the first time, and a lot of people think I hate it because of what I say about it, but I don't love it and I don't hate it. So I saw it twice. I mean, I could probably even sit down and see it for a third time, but now my opinion probably wouldn't change. But I would say what I do like about it. Like, I wrote a list, and I don't know what I did in my list, but off the top of my head, uh, of course, I like the wardrobe. We talked a little bit about that in the podcast. I think Ruth Carter did the wardrobe. She always does an excellent job. She's been in the game for a very long time, and she's probably. I'll be surprised if she never won an Oscar for some of her work. I think she did Black Panther. I mean, the wardrobes are gorgeous. Okay, production. Oh, she got a star. Okay, she got a Hollywood star. Okay, hey, she deserves it. She just does tremendous work. Okay, that's wardrobe. Production design was on point. That's a major upgrade from the first one, of course. You know, um, just it was just very beautiful to look at. Okay, I kind of touch upon something that you mentioned earlier about having the all black cast. I know there was a rumor. I don't know how true it is. How Eddie Murphy got a little bit of flack. He was accused of reverse racism because the producers wanted to. They was telling him he had to put a white person in the cast, and Louis Anderson was in the first one. A lot of people wanted Daryl and Samuel L. Jackson and Daryl in the sequel. So Louis Anderson, I can't stand Louis Anderson, no matter what he's in. Um, I don't think he's a funny guy. To me, I would rather have Daryl back because he's, even though technically he's not funny, but there's a lot of comedic potential with Daryl. Even Samuel L. Jackson, maybe he's he reformed and he ended up owning one of the McDowell franchises. I don't know. But anyways, just to see, I mean, the cast they were beautiful, man. The daughters, uh, Akeem's daughters, they were beautiful. Uh, I mean, just beautiful, beautiful to see, especially in the era where we talk about diversity. And like I mentioned in another podcast, a lot of people try to say diversity is put in a token here and there of a black person, put a token gay person, put a token whatever, and they call that diverse, slap down the diversity label on something like that. But um, it was a beautiful cast. Everybody looked good. Um, Another thing I like was Wesley Snipes. Let me tell you something. No matter I saw it the first time, second time, I had the very same impression. Wesley Snipes was hilarious. Every time he was on screen, he stole the show. He did the same thing in Dolomite is My Name, and a lot of people aren't expecting such a comedic side out of Wesley Snipes because we're used to him being Blade, playing action roles and drama roles. He doesn't really play a lot of comedic roles. Maybe To Long Fu. I never saw that, so I wouldn't know how that went. But yeah, he's a bit. I mean, he's hilarious. Okay, and nostalgia. Okay, that's another. Yeah, I do feel nostalgic in terms of um, where were you, when the first one came out. You remember, if you saw it in the theater, what were you doing? You remember that time frame. You're kind of going back and it's showing clips from the first one, so on and so forth. Whatever, right? Um, what else I could say that's positive? Um, yeah, I mean those are just a few positives that I could put on it, and I'll let Derek say what he has to say, and I'll say what I thought needed more work or what I didn't like about it.
I actually did like the movie. I thought it was a nice movie. Wasn't better than the first one. They even mentioned that it wasn't going to be better than the first one within the movie. So they actually set you up. I wish they would have done that at the beginning of the movie. Like before you watch this, just know that this isn't going to be as good as the first one. But yeah, no, I do agree. I did like the costumes. That was really like the best part for me were the costumes, the whole setting of Zamunda. If anything, they should change the movie to Welcome to Zamunda versus Coming to America, just because I feel like a lot of it just takes place in Zamunda, where you learn about the cultures of Zamunda, what it means to be a king of Zamunda, how you go about your kingship, which I thought was pretty cool. I like the daughters. I thought that was a really cool thing. I wish they would have focused a little more on them. I love Wesley Snipes' characters. Yeah, he's done some comedies before. Tu Wong Fu was a funny movie where he actually just threw in a couple of comedic jabs here and there. If I'd say he had a really good comedic movie, or my favorite comedic movie would probably be the first Major League movie. He was in the first one, didn't make the second one. He was definitely funny in Demolition Man. So yeah, I knew he had the comedic chops. But yeah, I just thought his whole thing, his whole shtick and stuff was hilarious, especially when he shows up, I think, to a wedding wearing a kilt. And I'm just kind of like, wait a second, where's that from? Why do you have a kilt on? And then like the workout scene itself, where all his men are just working out with the oh yeah, by the way, spoiler alert, probably should have said that to begin with. Just in case if you haven't seen the movie. All of his men are just working out with those I forgot what you call those things, those automatic dumbbells or whatever, the ones that you just shake, the shake weights, I think is what they're called. Yeah, and it's just hilarious because these guys are like super jacked just playing with shake weights. Yeah, the only thing I didn't like about it, well, there's like only one scene, but like the cameo appearances that he uses with the stock characters. The stock characters in this first one, I felt like that made the movie that much better, with the barbershop, with the random guy in the stadium during the St. John's game, Samuel L. Jackson at McDowell's. I feel like those characters itself kind of carried on the movie. With this one, I wouldn't say it as much. Like you had Arsenio Hall, who played, I want to say his name was Baba. Can't remember. Yeah, I thought it was funny because I felt like they were making fun of Forrest Whitaker's character in Black Panther. That's what it seemed like. I think his name was either Baba or Auntie, something like that. No, but yeah. Anyways, Yeah, I think the uses of stock characters were better in the first one than the second one. The only one I did like was the cameo appearance of Trevor Noah, and I thought that was hilarious. That was my best part, just because of the way they actually did it with him quarantined the way he was, and then they used all that stuff. I thought that was like a really cool thing they did for him. Like I wasn't expecting that whatsoever. But yeah, the movie could have been a whole lot better. Could have had a few more curse words. I think that's where it lost. Like it didn't have that edginess that it had the first one. I don't think it was going to, just because of the way they were going about it. But other than that, I thought it was a good movie. I liked the costumes. Didn't really like the music. I felt like the score from the first one made that movie what it was. Like you were part of a kingdom when you heard when you saw that the Joffreys were coming to America in their when they were getting out of limo in the first one. Like they just kept playing the same score throughout the movie. In the first one, it was just like it was just done beautifully to me with the trumpets. But as far as the second one goes, yeah, just wasn't a fan of the music. Feel like they could have done better with that. But other than that, I didn't hate the movie. I liked it for what it was. I feel like they were trying to do something up to date. I feel like they accomplished that goal as far as that goes.
And yeah, I love the idea of coming to Zamunda. I think that would have been a far better film. But yeah, you know, a lot. I hear a lot of people call it a cute film. It was cute, you know, and after, like I said, I haven't seen Coming to America in quite some time, and I just saw it yesterday for the first time in a very, very long time. I'm like, geez, it made it kind of it didn't kind of like what Jeff was saying when you juxtapose the two films, especially when you watch it kind of back to back. And I agree with that 100% because it's like, damn, all they did was retell the same jokes, you know, and it's like, okay, so basically it was a reboot and a sequel at the same time. You know, it's like, what's the point of making it if you're gonna? It almost felt like the same script, so to speak. They just changed things around a little bit. So to me, that you know, that's my criticism of the film. You know, because you might as well just rewatch the first one. But like I was saying earlier, it's kind of outdated. So all I did was update it. This is not to me. It doesn't really feel like a sequel. It's like a half-ass sequel slash reboot. Now, there was an article. I did not read the article, but it sounded like it was talking about how Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler wanted to be a part of it, but Eddie Murphy was like, "Hell no!" They didn't like the story, but they ended up doing a story that they kind of wanted to do in the first place. Now, even though Eddie Murphy works with a lot of black cast in front of the camera and even behind the camera, but when it comes to collaboration with other directors, because I remember back probably 80, maybe around 88, I think it was, where it was, I believe it was Robert Townsend, Spike Lee, and a couple other people. They are going to come together, kind of like do a collaboration, kind of like Spielberg and his boys got together, and people. You see collaborations amongst the top tier directors and stuff like that, and it didn't fall through. And I bet that had everything to do with Eddie Murphy because he was never. Um, I don't think he was never too much into that. Personally, if I think it would have made a far better film if Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler was a part of it. I think they would have made a far better film. You know, first of all, you had the name and the direction they probably would have went in instead of doing this half-ass reboot, half-ass sequel. You know what I'm saying? Um, and the guy, okay, I'm gonna tell you things I don't like. I hated the guy who played Lavelle. I hated that actor. He was horrible. I don't know how you guys feel about the job that actor did with that role, but I absolutely hated it. Okay, And I know I'm about to throw in something that, um, people, I've been getting people on people's nerves about this, but I post this in my social media that Prince Akeem got raped in this film, right? And nobody noticed. And it's like, which is surprising because the times we're living and where we're canceling Pepe Le Pew and we're canceling this, we're canceling that. But, you have, Prince Akeem gets raped, and, nobody says anything. And when I mention it, right, the responses I was getting were laughs. People were laughing. And most of them were women who were laughing. I'm sorry, I had to bring it up. I had to bring it up. And then when I showed proof, it was like, what do you mean? You're talking about you're doing, stop it. They tell me stop it. It's like, then I was like, okay, I recorded the evidence, played it. I was like, that went right by you. So that's what I meant earlier about Leslie Jones. She got to do a lot of risky things and be edgy. It seemed like women could get away with this stuff. But when men do it, she kind of like, it's like men are being neutered because Kevin Hart used to be very edgy. In his last special, the stand up he did for Netflix, it was so not funny. It was the unfunniest thing. Some people don't like Kevin Hart anyway, don't think he's funny anyway, but he really wasn't funny because he had to do what? He was like neutered. He was, you know, that thing kind of like just kind of proof positive that um, somebody like Eddie Murphy and other men, they can't, you see what they did with Dave Chappelle for a while, but he didn't give a shit. He's still doing his thing, but they try to cancel him and everything like that. But um, I know some people, that's a minor thing that I bring up, but I just thought that was interesting. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Um, and so that's the biggest thing, man. The biggest thing is it was just a repeat. It was very repetitious, the first one. So to me, if you have to be that repetitious, what was the point of making a sequel if you're just going to do the same shit over and over?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the film itself did just seem like so many cringeworthy parts, especially that scene. That scene was cringeworthy, but I think the way they try to play it out or set it up, yeah, I feel like they could have done something totally different than that to conceive what was the character's name? Tyrell, I can't remember.
Lavelle.
Lavelle, yeah. To me, that character wasn't really that significant either, other than that he needed an heir. And I think that's the only reason why it was excused, because this provided an answer to the current situation. They needed an heir. Apparently, one was found in America because of a situation that happened. Therefore, it's okay. Even though it's not okay at all whatsoever, I think because of the situation that it was needed for, made it okay. And not only that, like I think the comedic background of the whole entire thing was just this was all Semi's fault. Semi was the reason why this happened. Therefore, we should all blame Semi, which is why when you first discovered that he had sex with her, with Leslie Jones' character, I think the first thing he did was punch Semi or kick him, just because he was upset by the situation. Because I honestly think that was also his first time he was with a woman. Because in the first movie, it's mentioned that he never has sex with his bathers. So I guess we're just to assume that maybe Lisa was his first. I don't know. But yeah, I think they try to do things to kind of like excuse that behavior, which kind of sort of is supposed to make it okay, even though it's not. But I think that's what their goal was for that scene. I could be wrong though, but that's just I think that's just what I'm seeing.
So what do you think the idea? Can you imagine if, okay, like like I said, I hated Lavelle, the actor who played Lavelle, and what made Captain Coming to America so good at the time was Eddie Murphy was a big name. I mean, he was a big name for a number of years. You know, Beverly Hills came out '84. 4 years before that, he did Delirious. He broke out, was his breakout star, man. He's making all these blockbuster hits and stuff like that. And then, and to me, in order for this to work, his son should be in the same, like the actor who plays this should be on that level. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, I think it would have been better if he worked with Michael B. Jordan. I could see him as the son. He would have done a lot better. And Ryan Coogler, I don't know if he would have directed it or had some writing in it, because the person who wrote it was Kenyon Barris from the Blackish and Blackest Black AF and all that kind of stuff. So um, yeah, I think if they got involved, I think they would have made a much better film. And Michael B. Jordan would have been a lot better because he's well known. He's coming off of Black Panther. He's coming off of Creed. No, this guy who played, we don't know this guy. He has no charisma. There's nothing about this guy. So what's the point? This is why it's so flat.
Yeah, we were just talking. We just started talking about the sequel after a little bit of. But can you hear us on the? Can you hear me right now?
Yes. I'm
Awesome.
sorry.
All right. No. Yeah, no problem. Good. No. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we were just talking about our sort of reaction to the sequel. Yeah, if you do you want to first talk about the first one, Coming to America, the first one, or give a little intro for yourself, so I can.
Okay. Well, my name is Akosua. I new to the screenwriting thing, coming from a theater perspective, but have always been into cinema. So yes, as far as the first Coming to America, of course I was young, so there's a lot of things I didn't understand. I didn't quite catch back then that made sense years later as watching it. But it's a classic, So it's really, I never, when I found out that the sequel was coming out, I never ever thought that it was a smart idea to compare, because I just don't think usually when something is a classic that they'll get it right or do better. You get me? But my family, all of us, we basically know the words to everything in that film. So it was just it's comparable to, I don't know what year in comparison this came out, but it's kind of comparable to some of the other like slapstick Black comedies. But they were pulling pieces. Everybody was pulling pieces from Coming to America because how original it was. But as far as playing all those different characters and things like that, I'm trying to think of the name of the film that I'm talking about that had the Wayans brothers in it, and they were making fun of a whole bunch of different movies, like Shaft, and some of the actual same characters that were in the Coming to America film, they were in that too. But I kept seeing that genre happen, so it was easy for people to keep up. Do you know what film I'm talking about, Kenyatta?
I'm gonna get you, sucker. Is that the one you
Yes,
thought? Okay.
yes. That's what I'm talking about. But like, for example, if they redid that, I would not. It's no way possible that they would be able to make it better. I just don't think it would be possible. So if I'm watching it, I would watch it like, yes, it's going to be funny. They're going to try to bring the characters back, and I'm going to have fun watching it. So my mindset would have automatically went to that. And as far as Coming to America, although it was beautiful in a different perspective on African culture, like the way people dress and getting rid of the illusions of poverty and war and violence. So it didn't talk about all of that in it. It kind of reversed it and talked about the violence and things in New York. Kind of spent it on his head, which I thought was kind of clever. But it was a parody. So it was making fun of everything, making fun of Africa, making fun of poverty in New York, making fun of gangsters and violence and working minimum age and minimum wage and all of that. But it was still funny. So I don't know if that helps any. I don't know what anybody else said about it, but so it's hard to piggyback since I came in late. But that's my perspective on the first Coming to America. It was just fun and funny and memorable. Something that'll always be on the shelves in your living room or your diner, your living room, or if you have DVDs. So that's it. That's all I got.
Did you see the second one?
Oh yeah, of course. I've seen the second one as well. I didn't know y'all wanted me to talk about it all together, or if you just wanted my
because we talked about the first one already, and we talked about the second one. We talked about for the second one, we talked about what we liked about it, and then we turned around and talked about what we didn't like about it, what could have made it better, so on and so forth. So that's
okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, yes. As far as the second one, I saw the preview, so I knew that it was going to be different. And everybody's old. It just made it so funny because looking at people that was so young back in the old ones, and they're like grandma age now. It's hilarious. But there was one person that I missed seeing. It was there's no reason for him to be in the sequel, but I really, because that Soul Glow commercial was so funny to me, I was looking for her ex to be in it. I don't know where they would have placed him. And then Samuel L. Jackson, I was looking for him to be in it as well. But I know they went back in the past and brought up, the scene where he was robbing them or sticking up the McDonald's or whatever. But I still would have liked to see him come back for revenge in the second one when Prince or King come back into New York. But that's one criticism that I have. But as far as what I loved about it, it was colorful. I loved all of the wardrobe, like all the costuming. The stereotypes, they were even more ignorant than the first one. And I expected that. And the fact that they brought back, I think that was JJ Fad. Like what? My childhood was just crushed. Like I felt so old watching that, and my most favorite part of the film was the funeral. The reason why is because we knew someone had passed on recently who planned his entire funeral. Like he did the obituaries like years before he got sick. Like he kind of knew what was going to happen to him, and he planned his whole funeral. And the whole time everybody was at it, we was like, yeah, this is so him. This is so him. Everything, it was perfect the way everything came together. And then when we saw that part, me and my husband were like, oh man, he won. This is like way advanced. If this guy would have been around to see this, he definitely would have died at his funeral. So I just thought that was ridiculous. But because I know some people are that obsessed about how they go out in the world, that they would get a kick out of that part of the movie. Yeah. So that's my favorite part. The new actor that played his son, when they said he had a son in Queens, I was kind of irritated because I knew it had to be something that they throw in there. And of course, we'd never seen this female in the first part. She didn't even exist. So they just it was just a made up character that they added to it. I thought it was creative, but I knew they couldn't backtrack and explain that without adding to it. It's just no way. because we followed our king. He was stringent. He wouldn't even sleep with the lady that he made bark before he left. So he wasn't gonna just sleep with this woman. But I will say that I kind of got a little bothered by, the date rape drug. I mean, it was reversed. I think he does a good job with turning the head on a lot of things that's going on, like switching things around. The writers, and then whoever helped with the concept. I'm sure Eddie Murphy helped with the concepts. But yeah, I was annoyed by that, bothered by that, because it's a huge thing for me, and it just reminded me of what was going on with Cosby and all of that. So I don't know if that was where they were going with it, trying to sneak that in or not. But yeah, that was the one thing that bothered me, that all the way to the end of the movie, I was still kind of annoyed with her even being there. And I don't have anything else to say about it, except it was just really funny. I don't think there was a clear storyline. Of course, it was messy, and they put enough of the reminders from the first movie in there for you to still feel like you were watching a sequel. But it really did kind of, they went so far that it really kind of took away the concept of this person coming. He found himself or found his love in a foreign place and brought her to this magical place. And the fairy tale kind of got messed up. It really did. It just, at the end of it, was like, oh, okay, it was just a comedy. It's funny. And that's what I got from it. That's it.
Yeah, and like before you got on, we kind of mentioned the whole, Prince Akeem, that rape thing, and it was put in there for comedic purposes. And then when I kind of brought it to social media, a lot of people thought it was no big thing, deal. They thought it was funny, especially. And the funny thing is like everybody who thought it was funny were women. None of the guys thought it was funny, and which I thought was kind of ironic that we try to teach men. Well, men get chastised about toxic masculinity and cancer. We're in this era of cancel culture, and they're saying like teaching men should learn about rape culture in terms of not perpetuating it. But how can you do that when you have something like this happens in a movie and it's funny and women are laughing at it? So I mean, that's just a political part in the movie. And Kenya Barris, he wrote this, and sometimes he could be ignorant, and I could tell right now, I could have a feeling, it's like, oh, this is hilarious. Kind of like, let's pigeonhole this thing in here and we could do it this way, And I think because people like the movie, that part didn't bother them. To me, you could still like the movie and that part could still bother you. But anyways, that's why I think because you criticize, I noticed with this film that if you critique anything of this film, then you're a hater. People are getting cussed out because they say they don't like the film. Now, like I said, I'm indifferent. I don't hate it and I don't love it. But a lot of people who say they don't like it, a lot of people do like it. So it's just, I mean, this movie is a hit, and people are defending it to the point where if you say you don't like it, or if you don't like parts of it, you get cussed out, you get vilified, which I think is hilarious. But that's how it is nowadays.
I think that's funny. I mean, it's funny that the only thing that I think is funny about anybody trying to be too politically correct with describing the movie is like, if you went back and you introduced, I'm going to get you sucked into this generation, it would be so offensive. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't think there's any film that was very popular in the 80s and early 90s that that had these characters in it. Even Harlem Nights. I mean, I'm just gonna go down the list where any woman should feel prideful in watching that stuff. It was like really offensive to women all the way down. In fact, my offense is not even just that it's promoting rape culture, but that it was still making a woman into this needy thing. I think that my opinion about it is probably different from yours or most people that are saying that, you know, okay, women they're saying the Me Too thing and all this stuff is going on in Hollywood, and you know the stuff with Cosby and all these other Hollywood character heads or whatever. But I'm still looking at it like, okay, but at the end of the day, you still made the females look bad somehow in this, you know. Instead of just making it like a one night stand that he didn't remember, because he just didn't remember it, they had to go this way so that it looked like, you know, he was something happened to him. uh, but yet we ignore the fact that this woman that he told to bark like a dog because she was raised to praise and adore him was still barking all the way until that day when he stopped her. Supposedly, you know, I can't remember the character's name for Wesley Snipes. I apologize, but the character he played, he said that you finally released my sister from your spell. I mean, nobody talked about that, and nobody talked about the fact that then his daughter came and did the same thing again. That she would just do whatever he wants to do. What, you know? So I mean, I know that was like supposed to be making fun of what the culture is in Africa and the women being raised in this weak way. And they did, I think, do a good job recovering that by having the daughter become, you know, the
Queen.
representative of the family, the queen, in line to be the queen. But like, really, what is King Hakeem's wife's purpose? Like, except for the raising the kids, like, you know, she really didn't have a purpose. She seemed like she had more going for her when she was in Queens, in my opinion. So, you know, if we want to talk about like women's rights and all that stuff, there is so many things to pick apart in regards to what was offensive in the film than that scene, except it was just ridiculous. It was really just no point for that to be in there. It may be funny the way it was executed, not necessarily that the incident that happened was funny, but I do think it was executed funny because he had no idea, and then he went back and then we seen it. It was just the whole scene was funny. But yeah, it's a whole lot of things. If we were gonna be politically correct, this film would be in a lot of trouble. It didn't do anything to empower women except that last little thing. And I think some woman probably suggested it. Like, yeah, we can't let this happen. We can't go out with this. We're gonna get a lot of backlash. So I think that was that way of kind of saving it from being just too offensive or controverse as far as, you know, political correctness. Does that make
Well,
sense? What I'm
yeah,
trying to say?
yeah, I got you. And you know, sometimes, you know, if, I'm not into being too politically correct. Um, Sometimes, you know, there's such a thing to me. But to me, I don't mind an edgy something, a joke being edgy, but it has to make sense as well. Because, like, if you think about Eddie Murphy's character, Prince Hakeem, he was just so wholesome and so he was so moral. He was like the moral compass, you know, that okay, in the first one, he had the girl barking, staying on one leg. Then 33 years later, she's still barking. And imagine that's torture. So I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be funny, but that goes so against his character But you mean to tell me Prince Akeem never bothered to say, okay, you can stop doing that? It's like he didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? So to me, that ruined the joke because, you know, it's like it's one thing, okay, this is funny, but it has to make sense too. You know what I'm saying? I just can't imagine because as being, if I'm so moral and everything, imagine because of me for 33 years, somebody for 33 years straight is barking like a dog. And plus, that's offensive having black women barking like a dog in the first place. But which goes to show, like, if I'm so moral like Prince Akeem, you know what I'm saying? It's like in 33 years, he was supposed to have grown and matured. Wouldn't that one time say, just say, hey, this person, you know, I could tell her to stop, you know what I'm saying? So to me, that took away from any semblance of a joke there. I know I'm probably so particularly, you know, correct here. At the same time, where I'm saying that sometimes, you know, you could be, you know, constantly worried about political correctness. There's a problem being too politically correct all the time. But I think in this instance, I'm making that distinction that it didn't make any sense to the character. I don't know if anybody can comment on that or.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I understand it, but I also feel like to a certain extent, like just a little tiny bit, that maybe you're reading a little too much into the character. And I'll tell you why. Yeah, the joke is that she's been hopping on one leg and barking like a dog for 30 years, only because he told her to in the first movie, and he didn't tell her to stop. But I mean, did you ever think that even after he left to go to Queens, that he ever stopped and think about that woman he almost married? No, I don't think he ever did stop and think about her, which is why I feel like that's the joke when she appears again. She's barking like a dog and hopping on one leg. He's like, holy shit, I forgot all about this woman. Excuse my French. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on the portrayal of women on this movie, just because you do have that woman who's been taught all her life how to be a queen or be a queen to King Hakeem or Prince Hakeem, and how to act, how to walk and talk like a princess. And that's just because that's how I guess monarchies work, not just in Africa, but I think just all over the world. That I believe when monarchy still exists. I know there's just only know the one that exists in Britain. That's it. But yeah, as far as I go, I think that's just how that works. But then you see other female characters that enter the movie as well. You have the woman who cuts keep forgetting his name. I want to say Lavelle again, right? Who cuts Lavelle. She has goals and aspirations for herself. She doesn't just want to keep cutting the royal people's hair. She wants to go out and open her own shop, but it's just an impossible thing to do for some reason in Zamunda. I guess because she's a woman. I want to say maybe that's why. I mean, not just that, you also have like his daughters also have like her own aspirations as well. Like the eldest one wants to be queen, and she feels like she should be queen just because her father wasn't or isn't a man of tradition, just because he had to go all the way across America to find love, and she feels like she's going to have that same opportunity as well. But because he's in an urgent need to find this heir to the throne in order to promote peace, he does the exact opposite of following his own ideas of breaking tradition in order to achieve a different goal. But yeah, basically at the end of the movie, not only does his I guess new daughter-in-law opens up a barbershop in Queens where she's able to do what she wants, but his like daughters now have power in Zamunda as well, which means I think it's going to be like a step up for all women in Zamunda.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying that maybe you could, and that's the thing of, I what you just said, you know, that crossed my mind in terms of maybe he didn't realize she, for 33 years, was still hopping on one leg and barking. But after he saw it, he still didn't tell her to stop. And then you say to yourself, okay, how come General Izzy didn't step in? You get what I'm saying? So like when stuff, that's what I'm saying. The joke has to also make some semblance of sense, you know, in terms of characters and all that kind of stuff. it just seemed like that was just thrown there just for the sake of a joke. So, but I think it was ruined because it didn't make any sense. But maybe I'm just being too serious about it. But whatever.
I do think that most of the jokes didn't make sense. I mean, nothing made sense in the whole movie. I really think it all is ridiculous. I mean, come on, like his father wanted a funeral, and he did his funeral before he passed away. It's stupid, but it's funny, and it's something that people who are narcissists and egomaniacs would you consider doing it. It's just people out here in the world that can relate to the stupidity, no matter how ridiculous anything in this film was. There are people that you know out here that are this ridiculous.
But see, that's why that joke worked, because it made sense in terms of the character, because he was narcissistic. So that's why it worked. That joke, you know what I'm saying? And it was ridiculous. I heard people criticize, oh, he was standing up in the coffin, blah, blah, blah. But it worked for the same reasons that you discussed, that, his character is flamboyant. He's very, narcissistic. But let's say that's not his character. That joke wouldn't have made sense. And I guess that's the point I'm making.
And I guess I'll piggyback off of what Derek was saying about the fact that I think it was a rehash joke to imply that, this is what you were going to marry at first, and the whole point of bringing that out, I think, from what I can't possibly know why the writers chose that, but what I got from it was, this is the woman that your family thought was a queen for you. This would to build this kingdom, to maintain this family, and you went and you sought after a woman that you could relate to, that had a mind of her own. They were like revisiting that idea, and even though that was the point of bringing it back, the way that they introduced that concept was through comedy, and showing that, this woman that you could have married, and she would have still just been doing everything you wanted her to do, and you would just continue the legacy of your family, this patriarchal, male chauvinistic construct. And then you have to see that his personality, of course, didn't match with the fact that she was still barking. Of course, it was just a joke. That was just the joke. I think. I honestly don't think that most people were saying, "Oh my gosh, he's a terrible king. He's still letting this lady bark." Like, I don't think anybody should have took it that serious.
I guess
it did. I brought it up because it bothered me personally, but I get it. I get why they used it. I think that it made sense just to rehash that character. Like, what other role would that character have played in this family? I mean, just like when I said that the old boyfriend with his Jerry curl, and he was a chauvinist, and he wanted her to be in at his every will. He basically mimicked the way that the previous kings, and the idea of how males view women in Zamunda. He treated her like that when he wanted to marry her. So I couldn't figure out where he would fit into the film, but I would have liked to see him. And if she was missing, I would have felt the same way about her. Like, what about because she really got pretty famous after that movie. How couldn't they bring her back in there? And they just wrote a dumb way of putting her back in there, but she was there, and I thought it was important for her to be a part of it, because it like set the tone before he left for Queens in the first place. So that was my view on it. I do see relevance in what you're saying. Like, as far as, it didn't make sense, and it didn't have anything to do with his his character or his moral compass. It just kind of ruined that aspect. But a whole lot of different things ruined that.
Well,
Trained his
well,
daughters, and then his queen said, "Oh, sorry, were you about to say something?"
no, I was going to say that it, they could have saved it a little bit if he was like, Prince Akeem was like, oh my God, she's still. If he seemed so, he was just so nonchalant. When he saw, he was like, he just looked so indifferent. But you know something? Basically, I guess we're going around about saying this is lazy writing. I guess is what if I wanted to simplify what I'm saying, and that's just one piece of evidence of lazy writing.
Yeah, sometimes just rehashing a joke, from 30 years ago just doesn't really pan out, and that's the case with quite a few instances here. Yeah, again, it goes to sort of like this flatness that this follow up. It's this the best stuff is the stuff that is a callback or a retelling of the stuff that worked in the first one. The best new stuff is, of course, it has to be Wesley Snipes as General Izzy. Yeah, that's by far and away the best addition to the cast in terms of the comedic role. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, it's a lot of and there was a way to make that joke really land. Like Kenyatta was just saying, but it's just a lazy callback that, if you really think about it, it's detrimental to the Akeem character. It's detrimental to that character, and you might like chuckle at it initially, but then as you think about it a little bit more, there are problems with it that come up. All right.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody really thought that it. When you said it was bad writing choices, I agree that the whole thing was a bad writing choice, but it didn't matter because it was a part two of a classic, and some people just really want to see that, just wanted to see those aspects of part one in there. And and I think that was just the only reason. It didn't matter if it flew. It's in there. You make sure, it's like he had a list of things. Make sure that this, and this in there when you write. And they did it. And it was like, oh, okay, we're gonna roll with it. So the directing is what moved this movie into, the direction of being funny and entertaining. The way that it was directed, not necessarily how it was written. Like I said it before, that the storyline kind of got messed up and sloppy, but I didn't care because that's not what I was watching it for. I wasn't watching it to get empowered. I wasn't watching it to understand about him and the new kingdom. Didn't care about any of that, but it was funny. And that's the only reason I watched it, is in hopes that it would be funny. And I literally almost fell out of my chair the whole time I was watching the film. So I thought he did a good job with that. I mean, the ending with sexual chocolate. I mean, come on, guys. You know that was funny. Like, they were super out up there on the stage. And then here comes Randy Jackson. I thought that was so funny. Was it ignorant? Yes. Did it make sense? No, it did not make any sense, but it was hilarious. So that's how I think about the whole film. Even the stuff that got on my nerves, I would talk about it with a smile on my face. So they did the job well. I was thinking the whole time, if I had the choice to be a writer, would I be a writer or would I be someone behind the scenes? And I said, behind the scenes, definitely. I just wanted to be in the midst of all of this craziness that's going on. I don't even want to write. I don't want to write this. So, if that's my screenwriter's tidbit. And if somebody sent me the script, I would throw it. I would literally throw it out the window. I don't want to read that. I would see it. So that's my our perspective on the film in relation to the first one. It was fun. It was funny. I did like the addition of Wesley Snipes, but I did think they were biting off of of Black Panther a little bit with that one, because enemy in like a peace-loving country like this, it makes sense. Um, but then, like we all agree, right? And none of it makes sense, right? It didn't really make any sense.
But see, and that's all, and that's what my criticism is you have to make a choice. Either you make a reboot of the first one or a sequel. You know, that kind of, I don't know if you were here when I mentioned like Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson. It it wasn't just a reboot of Shaft. It was a completely different story, but it all was connected. You get what I'm saying? So it's a completely different story. So um, hey, if you want to reboot it, if you want to be a remake, so to speak, if you're gonna do a remake, do a remake. It's like don't have your toe halfway in, halfway out. Make a choice. You know what I mean? So because the first one is so outdated, you could update it with production, design, and wardrobe and what have you, and so Eddie Murphy could have played the part of his father. Could play James Earl Jones's part. It could have been just a reboot. That's what you wanted to see. That's just sound like what people want to. They pretty much what we halfway got. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I see it. I just think it would have been better if they were made a choice, a solid choice.
I disagree with that, only to say that there's nothing they could have did to make the. I just don't. I would have placed money on it that they couldn't reboot it or remake it any better than the original. No way. And what was his father's name? In the film, the James Earl Jones character.
Joffrey,
yeah, Joffrey.
Yeah. Jaffer or something like Jaffer, yeah.
Right. You just no, he had to be in there as the king. It just come on. Like, I think they made the decisions based off of would it entertain the audience were the old heads that watched it and loved it, and then the new school kids that would probably go back and watch Coming to America and love it. And that's it. And I think it did what I did think they completed the job. They could have done better. They could have, yes, I agree with you with that. It could making a choice between rehashing it, like redoing the whole thing, or a remake, like a part 2. I don't think it would have made that big of a difference, but it would have ruined it if all those characters weren't in it and we didn't identify who was who. It was fun to realize who was who in there for me. So I only disagree that it needed to be a choice between the two, and that stuff needed to make sense. I don't think that I know of any comedies that have like characters like Jim Carrey and what's the the Meet the Fockers family, and how they kept on redoing it and revisiting characters and stuff like that. I don't think that anybody, when they're writing these jokes or trying to make them make sense, just how can we squeeze it out? How we move so ridiculous that it's funny and memorable, and still reminds you of the past movies. And I think that was the direction they were going in, and it did it for me. So yeah, like being critical of it is important to I don't know, screenwriters who want to do better and want to write comedy and can't get away with just being rich and having a whole bunch of money to just waste on a set. And we don't have those, billions of, or well, I don't know billions, but millions and millions of dollars to put on something like that. But when you do, you literally can do what you want. And it just came across that way. I wouldn't want to sit down and interview Eddie Murphy or any of the cast about this movie, but I would watch it a whole lot of times. I'll keep watching this movie, and that's basically what I think other people may have gotten from it. Maybe sad, I don't know, that people didn't take it serious, but that's what the monster they created.
All right. We we up for final thoughts? For final
Yep.
thoughts on the boat? Okay. You want to start us off then?
Um, Final thoughts. Just to reiterate, I know sometimes I think society could be too politically correct, and in terms of comedy, I think the whole point of comedy is kind of like I don't know, I think the best comedy is the edginess. Um, it doesn't have to be rated R, but to me it's even better if it is. But I just at the end, like some of the ideas we came up, like if somebody gives $1 million, like what would we do? So there's a lot of opportunity out there for just a fresh take. Even if you did a reboot or you did a sequel, it's because you don't. I think when you say Coming to America, the sequel fell flat, and I think that's probably a piece of that. Is you have to be brave, and you know, I think that's the best product. You could produce the best product by just being brave and your artistic instinct, let that kick in and take over. You know what I'm saying? Because I know sometimes you have to work around certain things like producers in the studio and the heads of studios. They're not coming from an artistic standpoint, but I really encourage artists to do just whatever you feel like doing, or whatever is in your soul, let it out. You know what I mean? But in terms of films that I could recommend, just based on Coming to America, I kind of mentioned it earlier with the Bill Cosby slash Sidney Poitier films. Let's Do It Again, and Piece of the Action, and Uptown Saturday Night. Also, that trilogy right there, and it really stood the test of time. You can rewatch that now, and it doesn't feel outdated. You know, um, in terms, since we're talking about Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop was one of my favorite films back in 1984. Besides Terminator, until Do the Right Thing took over my favorite films all the time. Until whatever. But anyways, so another Eddie Murphy film that's underrated is Metro. I would like to see that again, and a lot of people don't talk about it. And he's really acting in this film, so it's not like this. Like, okay, take this well-known hot commodity of a comedian, okay, and stick him in a film and do sketches. Here, it's like I really got a chance to see him really act in a dramatic role, and the storyline was cool. Everything was cool, and all the acting and has some good actors in it. So if you haven't seen Metro, it's not talked about a lot when you think about Eddie Murphy. I would definitely recommend Metro, and that's it.
Yeah, comedy is the most subjective of all the genres. What makes people laugh is just so different from just person to person, and different sensibilities, different attitudes towards certain material. Um, and yeah, but and I think comedy is probably one of the better, especially comedy or satire is probably the best way to like break through sort of political correctness and just the sameness. And political correctness has its place in time, but I think it's also good to have stuff that pushes the boundaries, and that was certainly the case with Eddie Murphy in the '80s, especially with his stand-up specials. He has since fallen more into the family-friendly affair, especially started pretty much after this, all through the '90s, all the way up to now, a much more family-friendly affair. But uh, I would recommend Dolomite Is My Name. If you haven't seen it, it's a very good just filmmaking movie about just having just having the drive to make something, even though you don't have any of the resources. But yeah, I think. But as for the follow up, yeah, I mean, there's a good stuff that yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff here, but it seems that the the just the drive to make this was more seemed more financially driven, and yeah, that's the thing with every single movie, but with the original, it did seem like they at least like there's the putting on the show aspect, you know, especially with the sketches that Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall get into. There's that they are having a good time, and they probably had a good time with this one too, seeing each other for the first time in 30 odd years. But here it just seemed just going through the motions more so than just trying to make people laugh. And yeah, there's again, there's good stuff, but for the most part, it just plays flat. And I think sometimes and especially with comedy, you just have to strike when the iron's hot. And 30 years on, it's very hard to do that, as I keep reiterating. But and I think that's especially the case with comedy. If you have something, you might as well try to milk it for all it's worth, because it's just hard to get that engine restarted after so long on this between outings.
Hey, hello? Is it okay for me to go? All right. So as far as wrapping everything up, I just try to think back in my mind of any sequels to comedies that Eddie Murphy has done that's been good. And of course there are the old films from back in the day, like Beverly Hills Cop, that I would not mind seeing those, you could just keep on going with that. And I don't know if he would, but that would be something I would be interested from him. I think he could pull those type of action films off. He has a way with putting his comic spin on and otherwise, if it was somebody else in that place, it would have been just a regular, just action film. So he's good at that kind of stuff. But like, as far as films that were meant to be funny that I would want to see him particularly do again, I can't think of anything that he would be able to pull off, because he had such a long gap in between his career from those type of comedies. Again, I think it was a great film to sit down with your friends and laugh about. I hope he never ever tries to do it again. Like, do not do that. I think everybody would just shame him if he did. But when you ask the question about, bringing back some of these things, bringing back some of the old comics and stuff like that, I thought about the fact that, we know stand-up is funny, is real funny for a comedian. And I would love to see someone take, like, someone like Dave Chappelle, when he did his show, but make it different, where the comedian is speaking, but there's someone reenacting everything he's talking about. I think that would be hilarious. I think that, comedians deserve to be applauded by their stand-up comedy, because that's the stuff they're writing, or that they're, spending a lot of time with, because it's hard to make a film like that funny unless you're bringing back something from the past. And then you have to be careful so that this generation gets it. So I think all that, like you said, with the 33 years or so in between, stuff that's funny to us, it just might not even, the millennials might not even understand it. So you just have that kind of issue as well. But yeah, I think that this film is going to be talked about a lot, and people are going to remember it and keep watching it. And hopefully people go back and watch the original one so they can appreciate this one a little more. So that's it. That's all I have to say.
Final thoughts. Yeah. I feel like if you haven't seen the first one, you probably shouldn't listen to this podcast yet. I feel like you should watch the first one, then come listen to the podcast, and then watch the second one. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe watch the second one before listening to the podcast. But yeah, my final thoughts is, yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good film. It could have been so much better. It could have been like the first one, but it wasn't. They even explain it to you in the film that this is separate from any other film that we've done, but sometimes the sequel is not as good as the first one. So they let you know right then and there that, yeah, this is not going to be as good as the first one. However, we're going to try to make it as good as we can. But yeah, there was just a lot of cringy parts, but I guess maybe it's something that didn't age well. But I mean, with PC-ness being a thing this century, maybe we're, as creators, we're trying to do better. So I respect them for at least attempting, even though they really didn't, attempting to do better. But yeah, and I feel like a very important movie we left out of Eddie Murphy's career, and like I completely forgot about it until it just hit me in the face. About his edginess, we all forgotten about the movie Life that he did with Martin Lawrence, and like that was like one of the best movies he's ever done. After, I would say, Coming to America, like you had Metro was a good movie, you have the Shrek movies, which are also pretty cool, but like I feel like Life tops all those movies in the 90s. But that's just my opinion. So if you want to go back and watch Life, I thought it was like one of the funniest movies ever. But also we watched Beverly Hills Cop trilogy. I thought those were really good trilogies. Did I enjoy Trading Places? That's like, if you sometimes you just need to take a whole day and just like watch any movies in order. Certain ones you can skip. Um, I thought G was a good movie, but you wouldn't want to skip G. We forgotten about that movie that he did in mid 90s. But
You
yeah,
said you said G?
I think the movie was called G.
Never heard of it.
It's a movie where this was Jeff, he stumbles upon a guru who's Eddie Murphy, and he tries to use him to sell stuff, like a key C channel, while also trying to out himself. Yeah, it's one of like it's when Eddie Murphy was doing the whole supporting character thing. But yeah, watch Life, watch a bunch of Eddie Murphy movies, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, Metro. I enjoy Trading Places, but I feel like that's also a little bit different between Beverly Hills Cop and everything else he's done. But yeah, that's it for my final thought and movie choices.